The Ambassadors Speaker Series at the Carleton University presented a veritable platform for Nigeria's High Commissioner to Canada, Adeyinka Asekun, to connect Canadians to trade and investment opportunities in Nigeria. In a paper titled Nigeria-Canada Relations, Opportunities for Deeper Collaboration, High Commissioner Asekun, business management and seasoned banking and marketing professional, explained why Canadians should engage Nigeria.
Nigeria is looking for investment and trade relationships that will lead to employment through capacity building, meaningful skill transfer, and help develop sustainable value chains in the various sectors. If you look at mining, for instance, by the time you set up a viable mining environment, it's an entire ecosystem. People will provide security, people will cater. You have a whole ecosystem. So if you look at the various value chains, you find out that there's end-to-end prospects for investment from Canada. And the sectors that we've looked upon, we looked at are areas where Canada has demonstrated lots of expertise. Nigeria in exchange offers very attractive returns for investors in the various sectors and an investor-friendly climate. As a nation, we have made bold and meaningful reforms and continue to improve our standing in the World Bank's ease of doing business. The sectors we are looking at are areas where Canadian companies have something to offer. So it's win-win. We put areas whereby we know that there's mutual benefit in our collaboration. If we take a look at agriculture and the agro-allied sector, there are opportunities for Canadian companies to do very lucrative business in this sector. Opportunities exist along the value chain of the various crops, especially where it may be possible to bring about innovation and technology, improved ideas, new ways of doing things which move us away from the traditional ways which are not very efficient per se. So there's room for Canadians to bring in technology and innovation and new methods and see how we can improve that sector, because there's such potential for growth in agriculture. We have over 200 million mouths to feed, and then there's potential for export. So it's basically a place whereby there's a lot that can take place. And beyond, as I said before, beyond export, feeding the Nigerian market in itself will give you good enough business.
Then came the question and answer session.
Many of the students during my electoral campaign told me that they're having difficulty getting from Africa to Canada on student visas, although they are accepted to Carleton. So what would be your response as a government in Africa working toward smoothing out student visa issues?
There's a framework on immigration which has been developed between the two countries. When Minister Hussein visited Nigeria in 2018, there was a process that commenced with an exchange of ministerial letters. So we have an agreement in place which has been iterative. So Canada sends its version, Nigerian officials review it, make the modifications, send it back. So that has gone on a few times now. We're at the place now where I think we're about to finalize. Hopefully in April, we'll be able to sign. Now what that does is that it means that Nigerian students who want to come here are given some sort of preferential treatment based on certain criteria. There's also an accelerated track which is also being considered for Nigerian students. So this framework which we are looking at, once it is signed, will mean that there are benefits for people who want to come from Nigeria, students in particular, and those who want to come and do business.
My name is Gladys Omage from the Noma Passing School of International Affairs. I just want you to speak a little bit about what opportunities exist for collaboration between Nigeria and Canada in terms of research and development, or more of knowledge sharing. And also Canada is an immigration country, and in terms of sourcing immigrants from Africa, Nigeria is one of the top destinations. So I'm just wondering how, what collaborations and how Nigeria is working towards kind of engaging diasporas in Canada.
The biolab that I spoke about for containment of infectious diseases is an example of high-level collaboration between the two countries, whereby you have officials from the Nigerian health sector and the Canadian health sector getting together to work out the modalities and the scope and specifics of the biolab. That's at a very high level. Also, you have a number of Canadian institutions. You have Carleton, you have Dalhousie, and a number of others who are also looking to see how they can collaborate. So you have in the works potential curriculum exchange, exchange programs, curriculum enhancement. All that is ongoing. I don't think it gets very much publicity, but it's all going on. And I think the key is for us probably to talk more about it, but it's happening. Okay.
Thank you for a good presentation. My name is Adeyinka Asekun from the Coaching Association of Canada. Nigeria used to rank up there when it came to sports, global sports. Soccer, we won the Olympics against Brazil in, I think, 94, 96. We have a lot of Nigerians who are, making the headway in this global sport. Anthony Joshua, Usman, UFC. But can you shed light on specific challenges, facing Nigeria right now in the sports industry? Why we no longer have, prominent athletes coming forward to participate in global sporting events? And could you also, pinpoint some potential opportunities for Canada to collaborate with Nigerian states, not just on a federal level, but maybe on a state level, to improve the sport industry and potentially also the arts and culture?
One of the things that the Prime Minister and the President discussed on this visit actually was sports. And Mr. Masai Ujiri accompanying the Prime Minister on these visits, part of it is to begin to see how there can be collaboration. I know that the NBA is about to become something quite active in Nigeria. What you have in Nigeria is you have gifted sports people who tend to go abroad and go and get involved in sports. And I think it's because we've not managed our sports space in a way to ensure that people would stay. Part of the problem, which you may recognize, is the fact that very often, once there's a change in government, there's a change in the leadership and the sports ministry. And that often means a change of vision. So one thing that I'm hoping will happen is that there will be some sort of vision which the leadership at the very top will put in place, which people will be compelled to run with, some sort of blueprint, which people will be compelled to run with. Because otherwise, you find out that each time a new sports minister comes, he does what he wants to do, and it's not helping us. You're right. I mean, in times past, we did much better in sports. I remember with nostalgia the 1996 Olympics when we won the gold. And those days will come again because the talent and the skill is still there. I think it's just a question of leadership at the very top, putting in place a vision and a blueprint which people are compelled to run with. So it's not a question of each sports minister comes and changes the game. But I believe there's basis for collaboration between the two countries, and the Prime Minister and the President are looking at that. And we at the Nigerian High Commission are going to run with that, and we're going to reach out to Mr. Ujiri very soon and get him to work with us.
My name is Brenda. I'm the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs.
Okay.
One of the questions I have is, can you identify the major challenges in promoting trade and investment between Nigeria and Canada?
I come from a private sector background, so when I came here and saw the level of trade between the two countries, I was quite alarmed given the potential and what could be, which is why we embarked upon this process of trying to create more awareness and more understanding as to what it's like to do business in Nigeria. But I found that it's like a building process. So we did the first summit, the second summit, it's like a grind, but it's work that has to be done. So the first thing really is to create the awareness, which I believe is happening. With the government sending a representative, it helps. You get in more and more collaboration from the government of Canada, the word begins to spread. So that's part of it. Another thing which has been a concern has been the absence of a FIPA. Not having a financial investment protection and promotion agreement in place has been an impediment. But you see, the way it stands right now is that both countries have decided to review their model for putting a FIPA in place. Nigeria has finished that process. Canada is finishing its own, hopefully within the next few months. Once that is done and a FIPA is in place, more Canadian companies will feel confident enough to come and invest in Nigeria because they want the assurance that the investment is safe and secure. So those are some of the key things.
I'm a journalist and have actually spent some time in Africa.
Yes.
East Africa, actually. Can you give us any indication of whether you've made any progress in dealing with the radical groups such as Boko Haram? And is there an optimistic track about what, it's not just Nigeria's problem, I fully recognize that.
There has been progress, and I'll say there's been progress because when the present administration came into power in 2015, Boko Haram occupied 14 local government areas whereby it had put up its flag. So the military establishment has been able to reverse that. They don't occupy any space in Nigeria right now. However, they go after soft targets, which is in a sense a global phenomenon. And so the challenge for the Nigerian government right now, security forces, is to develop other ways of dealing with that in enhanced intelligence, ability to deal with counterinsurgency, the ability to also deal with local policing, having a lot more local. So what you have now, you have a lot of regions developing their own security agencies because all these insurgents and terrorists, they live somewhere, they belong somewhere. So you need a situation in which people are actually collaborating with the security agencies to give out information that's valuable. So we need to work with countries that are more advanced in terms of the whole area of gathering intelligence, because it's a different, this is not warfare, it is insurgency. They're going against soft targets, suicide bombers here and there, blowing up places. It requires a different type of mindset, which we're learning better and better how to deal with. So I believe that given time, as there's more collaboration with the security agencies and the local people, there will be an improvement. But progress has been made and is ongoing.
I spent a number of years at the University of Alberta. And when we think of investment in oil and gas, we tend to think of people actually owning chunks of wells and chunks of production. But the interest at that time, when I was there, was not that. It was exporting technology, exporting services. There was no, in that I don't know what the progress has been. It's a different kind of thinking of investment, because it really is not the same sort of thing. We're going to buy a chunk of stuff. We're going to help develop the chunk of stuff is the different thing. I don't know where it was, but there was a lot more interest in Nigeria and other countries as well to participating in the development of the industry that way. So it'd be interesting to know how that has evolved. These are industries of the 20th century. What does the trade pattern look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when we should be thinking of something else? What are bridges that need to be built now in order to be effective 10, 20, 30 years from now? Those would be interesting, I think, questions to be asked. It is interesting that you mentioned the visit of Mayor Brown from Brampton, because a question, as you were saying, people don't know much about Nigeria and Canada. We plead guilty, all of this by all means, but there is a significant diaspora. If you think of Carleton in engineering, for example, Nigeria provides the second largest sources of students in here, so there is some connection. Is there a way of using the diaspora in order to get that information out both ways? Opportunities in Nigeria, but also Canadian knowledge flowing into Nigeria. That would be interesting. My last point is a bit less complimentary on Canada. And it has to do that we typically roll through these cycles where all of a sudden we're very interested in Africa, we're interested in specific African countries, large numbers of specific African countries, and 5 years later we lose interest and we're doing something else. What is it that Nigeria could do to keep Canada focused on the opportunities that exist in Nigeria, but also more broadly in Africa? Thank you.
The Ambassador Speaker Series features foreign ambassadors in Ottawa to provide opportunities for heads of missions to share their views on global issues and business opportunities in their countries. The series, which features 4 events annually, are organized by Lawrence David Lederman, a former Canadian diplomat and ambassador. A diverse audience made up of seasoned diplomats, the Canadian government and private sector, faculty members and students of international relations attended the event.